now to see what she thinks happened last night. Michelle, are you stunned at sort of the reaction that seems to be so, one-sided, that it was so obvious who the winner apparently was?
I'm not stunned. I'm actually quite amused by all of the hair pulling and chin pulling that occurred last night afterwards. I always think it's better to be underestimated than overestimated. And I think in this case, Barack Obama suffered from his own hubris. He strolled in there thinking he could just phone it in. And it reminded me, of course, that several weeks ago we had National Empty Chair Day. Well, it looked like National Empty Podium Day there yesterday for him. Rather unfortunate, and I think he's not going to take it for granted the next time around.
You know what I thought interesting, Michelle? For example, when you talked about when you hear the president talk about tax breaks for the oil companies and tax breaks for the rich and corporate jet owners, as if they're the problem, I thought it was very interesting in a very calm, calculated way. Mitt Romney was able to spell out why they are not the problem and take the corporate oil, take the oil company tax breaks, put it in perspective, and then compare it to the green energy. A lot of people who do this stuff for a living and study it and were hoping not to be vilified, which they were for the last 3.5 years, must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, Romney was incredibly effective. He looked competent. He sounded confident. He was engaged. He was everything that Barack Obama was not. And I think it was a reminder to people of just how disengaged this president has been in times of crises. And I think the other thing that people were really looking for, not just the conservative base, because certainly we were all extremely happy about how he did, but I think independents, and we saw this, that undecideds were very moved and swayed by Romney's performance yesterday. They saw somebody who was not afraid to back down and defend his principles and defend success in America. Well, it was very powerful.
According to a CBS News Instapoll last night, about half say Romney won, but Michelle, 56% say that their opinion of Romney changed for the better. 56%, only 13% say their opinion of Mr. Obama changed for the better. In the meantime, you know what? President Obama showed that he was a little thin-skinned last night and, in fact, told the moderator how to do his job. But first, before we see that, let's see Mitt Romney on the tear last night.
I don't want to cost jobs. My priority is jobs. And so what I do is I bring down the tax rates, lower deductions and exemptions. The same idea behind Bowles-Simpson, by the way. Get the rates down, lower deductions and exemptions to create more jobs, because there's nothing better for getting us to a balanced budget than having more people working, earning more money, paying more taxes. That's by far the most effective and efficient way to get this budget balanced.
Jim, you may want to move on to another topic.
And one of the things about the president last night is, for all of the many points that Mitt Romney had right up here, and he was able to effectively communicate them, the president had nothing.
Yeah, no, throw me a lifeline, Jim. Hurry up. It was great. And I thought that Mitt Romney did a fabulous job of very methodically and logically dissecting the rambling of Barack Obama. There was one case, I think that it might have been during that exchange, where he wandered from talking about the corporate jets to Medicaid to pulling out some really irrelevant anecdote. And Romney was able to come back to him, A, B, C, D, E, respond to each and every one of these points, and he just didn't let Obama get away with the same kind of pablum talking points and recycling that so many of the lapdog media journalists have over the course of this campaign.
See, I think that's the headline of the night, actually, Michelle, because people were calling this race over, and people were saying that these debates might not matter. I totally disagreed with that, by the way. But to me, it was this opportunity for the American public to see both candidates on the same stage for the first time, where they couldn't get away with just doing the stump speech, and where they were going to be challenged by one another. And I think you saw a stark difference.
Yeah.
Yes, and in particular with really popping the bubble with regard to this class war demagoguery. And I think where Romney shined the most was when he was able to display just how much he appreciates and understands the role of small business in this country.
Now, I want you to hear when they talked a little bit green energy, you would think the president would embrace this. I don't think in retrospect he does. Listen.
don't forget, you put $90 billion, like 50 years worth of breaks into solar and wind, to Solyndra and Fisker and Tesla and Enter1. I mean, I had a friend who said you don't just pick the winners and losers, you pick the losers.
I mean,
Zing.
Ouch.
Right. I think, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's about time that this came to the forefront. And with no help from Jim Lehrer, you'll notice that the massive failure of these billion-dollar investments in all of these crony green job companies, and this is very relevant in a state like Colorado, especially as well, where when you pick these winners and losers, or as Romney's friend aptly said, all of the losers, that the people who lose are the people who are most competitive in the marketplace.
We also know that the president had AARP in his back pocket for the longest time. He seems to want to be out of the back pocket. They were cited yesterday when by the president last night when he said, look at my plan. The AARP supports it, and they want out. They want no more. In fact, they released a statement last night essentially saying, keep us out of this election. We want to be nonpartisan, which I was stunned. But by the way, how hypocritical.
Right.
When the rubber hit the road and they decided to support the Obamacare, that had a lot to do with it moving forward. That provided a lot of cover for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brian, and I haven't forgotten that. You haven't forgotten that. I think people who paid attention during that Obamacare debate didn't. But I think it's very telling that, one of the closest allies and enablers of Obamacare is now cutting and running from Obama. And remember that the AARP benefited from waivers during the Obamacare debacle, and then also afterwards, of course, had to admit to their own membership that their insurance rates were rising as a result of adopting this thing that they had championed.
You know something you champion because you're the proprietor of Twitchy.com, which is a social network aggregator. You look at all the tweets. Last night, the biggest tweet night in the whole wide world's history. Here's something that Bill Maher tweeted out. He said, I can't believe this. I'm saying this, but Obama looks like he does need a teleprompter. It was pretty clear, pretty early, thanks to things like Twitter, that the left turned on the president. They thought he didn't bring his A game. He was lucky if he brought a C game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Hollyweird set, which has invested so much, both emotionally and, of course, in Bill Maher's case, financially, as the #1 donor of the dirty super PAC that has lied and lied and lied about Romney, not very happy, not giving him an A at all in that debate.
Personally, I don't care what Bill Maher says every day, including today. Well,
it'll be interesting to see how the performances change for debate #2, if they do. Michelle, Malkin, thanks so much. Have a great day.
You bet. You too. Take care.